Hey everyone, I am back, and so I had previously filmed a travel supply, what I was taking to Barcelona and to France and Italy for our honeymoon. Then I did not have enough time to edit it, so I figured I could bundle it into one video where I talked about the supplies I took, what worked, what didn't, type of thing. Just so you know, there were a few things I incorporated into my supply kit that I bought while I was there, but for the purpose of this video, I went ahead and took them out. And so I'm going to be doing a whole haul video later, and that will include 2 stores in Florence, a store in Barcelona, and a store in Rome. A little excessive, but it was so much fun. But that's a video for a later date. I also have a video camera up here, so it'll be able to take, you know, the overhead shots for anything. Alright, so let's get started. In my Fineliner bag that I got for, is a sample bag, I had my cloth that I used all the time. This was, as you can see, very heavily used and loved, so I used this non-stop, and then I didn't have to rely on trying to find paper towels or anything like that. It was absolutely perfect for the trip. Then I also took my Fineliner Resist Pen. It did not get used that often. I found when I was painting plein air, or I guess like on the scene, I only had maybe like 10 to 30 minutes to paint or draw. And so it was one of those things where I didn't have enough time to let this set. So instead, I just didn't use it. I think this might be something better for when I am home and I have enough time to let this set. So then I did use my Tombow Mono Permanent Adhesive. This actually worked out really well when I wanted to quickly stick something into my daily journal. And that is going to be a whole other video, as well as that includes everything that happened in September, from the wedding to me traveling to Grand Rapids to the honeymoon. And so that has 3 pretty big events in there, and so this came in really handy for that. And then I had my big clip to hold down my pages, and I think everyone needs an alligator clip or something like that when you're trying to especially do watercolor when the wind is blowing or when your sketchbook won't lay flat open. You know, it's just nice to have just in case. So that was everything. I think the only thing in that bag that I would not bring again is my fine line. And that was just more because of the time issues. It has nothing to do with the actual product. I really like the pen product itself. So then it's my pencil case. This one, actually I did not use a lot of this stuff in here, which surprises me greatly. I used my Lamy Pen once. I would have used this a lot more if I did not have my other fine liners. So I don't really know. I think I'm going to still keep this in my case, just because when I do like to write, I like to have it, but it's not something that I reach for all the time. I had both my Prismacolor and my Eno pen. I used my Eno a lot more than I used my Prismacolor. I think I like the Eno too because it is mechanical. It's easier to erase than the Prismacolor in my mind. I did not even use my Starbucks gift card at all, or the washi tape. I purchased this washi tape this is actually masking tape while I was over there, and so this is what I used a lot more than the ones I had. I needed it to block off the pages, and so I needed a lot more than what I actually brought with me. And I did not need to refill my lead, but it's always good to have just in case. Next is the Jelly Roll pen, and I really did not use this that much. Actually at all. I did not use this at all. I really like the Jelly Roll pens for when I have a black background and I need to write on top of it. But other than that, I just don't really like highlighting with it. I think I'd rather leave the paper blank than highlight on top of it with this pen especially. I did not use my BIC Mechanical Pencil at all. I have 2 of my Microns. I did use these a lot. Actually, for some reason I want to say that I had my 005 in here, and while I was abroad, the nib squished down, so I was not using it that much. So I think I actually was working on other stuff and I ended up putting my 01 in here, but I did not take that. I ended up getting a Staedtler 0.05, and this is what I used for pretty much the entire time, along with my 08. I like the differences in the nib sizes. In case I want to do something a little bit more design-ish instead of accurately. I don't know if that makes sense. My Tombow pen, I used it a little bit, but not that much. I didn't feel like my drawings really needed it. And same thing for my Sharpie pen. I did not use that at all. This one I really just like to write with, so I would rather write with my Sharpie pen than my Micron pens, but I really didn't find myself using the eraser very much, although I do love it. I'm going to keep it in here because I do love it. My Marvy, actually the name has rubbed off of most of them, but my Marvy Aqua brush pens I used the entire time. I would say about 90% of my paintings, this is what I used, and I absolutely loved these brushes while we were over there. Now if I'm sitting at my studio, I don't want to necessarily use these, especially with 100% cotton paper, just because I find it tends to tear the paper easily. But for traveling, and especially my daily sketchbook, these are wonderful. And then of course my Winsor Newton case that I have, that I filled with, I emptied all the colors out and I filled them with Schminke tubes. And I used this the entire time. It was absolutely wonderful. And I found that I gravitated towards more colors than others, especially while mixing. I kind of wish I had a different green. Instead of maybe 3 blues, I could add like a different green that was more of a pure green instead of one that had, I guess, more blue in it. But I don't know. I really liked the colors that I brought along. I liked the setup of it. This came in really handy as I was trying to mix colors and see what worked best. My favorite combination, I think, was the ultramarine with the sepia. Schminke's sepia turns out really black instead of brown, but if you put it next to black, you can see the brown come through. But by itself, it's really weird. It looks more black than anything. And that was basically what I took with me while I was traveling. So now we're going to quickly go through my Stillman Birn sketchbook that I took while we were traveling. I also took my daily journal, and that one is more for the tickets and more to jot down notes. This one I wanted to bring to actually capture different images while we were sitting somewhere. So we start off, and please excuse any pronunciations because I have no idea how to pronounce them. This was in, let me make sure it's in frame. This was in Palma de Mallorca. We took a catamaran, and this is actually one of the scenes while we were sitting on the catamaran. A lot of people chose to swim during our hour of time, and I chose to paint while we had free time. Okay, this was the Notre Dame in Marseille. And you can, it's definitely a rough draft. A lot of my proportions are slightly off, or like this part right here, these parts, those are actually supposed to be more of that cream color instead of black. but I completely messed up on the proportions and the way that they were going, so I just quickly filled them in because that's all I could do at that point. But these are all rough drafts for paintings that I want to do in the future that are inspired by the trip, and then later host them either in a different sketchbook or possibly cut them out and hang them separately. So this was the restaurant that we ate in Marseille. It's called, I believe it's pronounced Le Côte des Bœufs. No idea if that's correct. But it was really nice to be able to sit, have lunch. We sat outside. So this is the entrance of the restaurant because we sat outside, and so I was looking at it while we were eating. This was on our bus ride to Florence, and when I was going through how I wanted to go about these paintings, I kept telling myself, for each of these paintings, I really want to just sit there and capture it, have the ambiance. But with something like this, it goes by so quickly because you're in a bus. So I went ahead and took a picture of this, and I definitely used my artistic license to change up a lot of the things that didn't really work well for the image that I wanted to portray. And so this is inspired by the rolling hills of the Tuscan region. So I really enjoyed working on this on the bus ride. It made the 2-hour bus ride go by a little bit faster. Okay, this is one of my favorite restaurants in Florence. It's really the only restaurant I've eaten at in Florence, to be completely honest, but it's something that I would go back time and time again. It's called Zaza's. And I believe anywhere you go, especially in the Tuscan region, if you get their house wine, it's going to be magnificent. Their Chianti is so delicious, and their cheesecake, out of this world. And I'm very sensitive to lactose, but I found the entire time that I was in Italy, granted I was taking like some pills and everything so I wouldn't get sick, but even sometimes in America when I do that, I still get super, super sick. And so I've just learned to just stay away. I took my chance especially in Florence. My pasta was full of cream. The cheesecake itself, I had gelato, and I never once got sick. I never once really had too many side effects from it. It was amazing. So I don't know if it's because we do something differently in the States. I'm not exactly sure, but for the most part, I really didn't have problems in Italy. It was amazing. But this is our little corner of the world for that 30 minutes, and it was our table and like the wall area where they have a lot of the stuff that they sell. And so I just wanted to quickly capture that while we were eating. And yeah, it was so good. It was so good. I would swim across the Mediterranean Sea for that cheesecake. This is actually when we were waiting on someone from our group, and I wanted to quickly just see if I could, like how fast I could try to sketch out a very intricate building. Before we left, I almost picked up a book called 5 Minutes. Actually, I can't even remember. 5 minutes sketching architecture or something like that. And I ended up not getting it because it was a lot of stuff that I already kind of knew. I just hadn't really applied it yet. So it was more, I needed to apply it instead of learning the information. I just needed to try to apply it. So this was probably about 10 minutes. Obviously, I did not finish, but it was really cool to see what the important details were, how I was started to lay everything out first, and how I probably should have rough drafted it in the very beginning. So it was just a very interesting thing that I wanted to try out. Okay, we're starting to get to the end. So this is when we were sitting down for lunch in Rome. And we ended up meeting such a wonderful couple from England, and we had one of the best conversations that you could have with complete strangers. This was in the Piazza di Navona, and it was just this isn't necessarily my favorite painting of the trip, but it's one of my favorite memories of the trip. And so seeing this just brings back all those fun conversations and the fun time. And Juliet, I hope you had a very happy birthday. Okay, and this is a very, very quick, this was like a 10-minute, very quick painting while we were in Capri. This is when we were eating some pizza in Capri, and it wasn't like the most ideal setting to paint. It was more kind of like a fast turnaround type of thing, and I really didn't see that much interesting to paint. That sounds terrible, but I really didn't. What I wanted to capture though were in all of their little squares that they had, instead of lampposts, they strung these lights, and it was a thick rope with these very industrial looking lights, and that's what lit the square. And I found that completely fascinating. They actually have a church there, and they have like maybe 8 different strings of these lights, and it just fascinated me. So that's what I really wanted to capture with this painting. We also took a chairlift to the top of Mont Solara, and it was so beautiful. It was very hazy and overcast, but it was still magnificent. So I can't even imagine what it would look like on a clear, bright day, because it was just so beautiful. And they had this statue here. You could see some of the islands down here. It was just a great time. Then the next one takes us to Barcelona, and this is the final one that I painted while there. Abner really wanted to go to this place called Satan's Coffee. And I just found the name fascinating. I wanted to know what it was all about. It was very punk, like the music was very punk. It was very industrial and urban. It was very hipster-like, but not in a pretentious way. I don't know really how to describe it very well, but it was a lot of fun. They fused what seemed to be Asian themes with more, I guess, European themes. They had menu items with kimchi in it and some Japanese related, I guess, hints of culture mixed throughout it. And so there was this one area of the place that I really wanted to capture. And I don't think it necessarily came through very well in my painting because it looks very bland almost. But if I were to ever recreate this painting, I know the different things that I would want to accent and to make it pop. So this was just a really fun place to go to. If you're ever in the Barcelona area, I highly recommend Satan's Coffee. And that ends the sketchbook of when I was over there and painted there directly. I am going to have another video about my daily journal for September. If that isn't already up, I may film that and post that first. And I'm going to have another one about the hauls from the 4 different places that I had gone to get art supplies. And so stay tuned for all that stuff coming up, hopefully within the next couple weeks. And I'll catch you later. All right, bye guys.